By design, HTML has this small set of elements. This makes HTML easy to implement and ensures backwards compatibility with earlier versions. The downside of this is that it limits the semantic meaning that we can impart with the default set of elements. In this chapter, we're going to take a look at some of the techniques that can help us extend the meaning of our content. We're going to start by exploring how incredibly useful HTML comments can be. So to do that, I'm going to open up the blog.htm file found in the 04_01 directory. Now, if you've been authoring HTML for a while, you're probably familiar with comments. But for those of you that aren't, they're an extremely helpful way of passing along information to other authors or people reading your code that you don't want rendered within the browser itself. We're actually already using one on this page. You'll notice in the very top at the head of the document, we have a script here for HTML5 shim, but we only wanted that to affect browsers that were Internet Explorer prior to version 9. And that's why we're using what's known as a conditional comment, which is the if less than IE 9. However, this part of it, the opening part, which is exclamation point dash dash, and the closing part, which is dash dash and then the angle bracket, that's just a normal HTML comment. And it allows us to pass along any information that we want without that information being parsed and rendered by the browser. So let's say we wanted to pass along to people reading this page sort of what this conditional comment is doing. I might want to help other authors out. Maybe they're going to look at this and say, I have no idea what that code is doing. So I could create a new line just above that, and then I could type in a left angle bracket, exclamation point dash dash. So that is the opening of my comment. And I want to add a little bit of descriptive text here. So I'm just going to say adds HTML5 element support for earlier versions of IE. Now, when I'm doing a comment, it's really important that I remember to close it, because if I forget to close it, in a lot of cases, browsers will just ignore everything that comes after it because they think it's all part of an open comment. So I'm going to do dash dash and then a right angle bracket, and that's going to make sure to close my comment. So essentially what I'm doing here is I'm passing along a little bit of additional information. I'm letting people know that, hey, below this, I'm adding HTML5 element support for earlier versions of IE. A lot of times you'll do this just as a way of being nice to people that might be reading your code. Sometimes it's a nice way to be nice to future versions of yourself. Maybe you're going to open up this document later on, and you might want to give yourself a gentle reminder of why you were doing something within your code. Comments are definitely helpful for that. They're also helpful in team environments. Maybe you've got multiple people working on a site. One person's job, for example, is to come in and add certain types of content, like maybe advertising content. In that case, you might create a comment to let them know where that content was supposed to go. So if I scroll down in my blog page, all the way down towards the bottom, I can see that there's a little aside down here on line 126 that has an ID of ad copy. So that's where the ad is supposed to go. Now, most people would read the ID and know this, but maybe you're going to tell your dev team, hey, look for this comment, use a find and replace or something like that to insert the ad content. So again, I'm going to write another comment here. So remember the left angle bracket, exclamation point dash dash. And then inside of that, I'm going to type in add content goes here. Now, did you notice how brackets went ahead and grayed everything out? Most code editors or most IDEs are going to represent comments as gray text, just to let you know that it's not going to be parsed, it's not going to be rendered by a browser. You'll notice that if I leave this comment open, browsers would ignore everything from here down. So that's really a big deal. So I'm going to have to remember to do dash dash right angle bracket to close that again. And you can see my code editor helps me by letting me know that that's coming back. Now, if I save this, and let's say I preview this in my browser. Now, if I scroll down to where the ad content is supposed to be, I don't see anything. And that is simply because comments are not rendered or parsed by browsers at all. They're totally ignored. So you can use them to do things like I'm doing here, which is pass messages along to development teams. You can add additional information for what's going on within a particular function or widget. And you can do that for yourself or maybe other people that are coming to your site. Now, even though they're not rendered by the browser, do keep in mind that it adds to the weight of your code. So most people have a strategy for when comments are appropriate. And a lot of people, when they're publishing their sites, will strip their comments out through the use of a script of some type or another. Now, chances are, if you've been writing HTML for any time at all, you've probably been making use of comments. However, I wanted to make sure that I included them in the discussion of how you can communicate more detail about your content to fellow team members or even to your future self.